Well, hi there. This is Brent Smith, and I'm the Common Constitutionalist, and you may have noticed that for the second week in a row, this is an audio podcast, not a video podcast. And it's because of a couple of developments. First off, the weather once again wasn't conducive. It's been sunny all day, and then all of a sudden, about an hour prior to me deciding, okay, I'm going to go out and do the podcast, the skies opened up, and the wind started, and the rains blew, and everything else. So that's one. And second, earlier today, my son and I were sparring. I used to compete in martial arts competitions, and so I've been teaching my son for the past couple of years how to spar, and all has been going well, until today, when he cracked a couple of my ribs, I think, or at least he certainly bruised them. So it makes it a little bit difficult to breathe, to move around, to ride in the car, to do pretty much anything but sit here and talk. And that even is a little bit uncomfortable. So anyway, as I've said before, we're going to soldier through. So this audio version of the weekend video podcast is entitled, Is Weed Killer Really in Cereal? And Will It Kill You? So that's what I'm going to be discussing today on the Common Constitutionalist Weekend audio version of the video podcast. Be right back.
You are listening to the Common Constitutionalist, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black helicopters.
Okay, I'm back. And if I wheeze every once in a while, you'll at least know why. So anyway, here we go. So what's the latest cancer scare sweeping the nation? Well, it turns out that there isn't a latest cancer scare. So let me rephrase that. What's the latest nanny-derived lawsuit scam sweeping the nation? That's better and a hell of a lot more accurate. Well, evidently someone has discovered pesticides in our cereal. Shocker. This time, the culprit is amongst other cereals, is Honey Nut Cheerios. Yes, indeed. The pesticide is glyphosate, the active ingredients in what else? Roundup weed killer. Sheesh. And if you've seen the reports, you'll know without a shadow of a doubt that Roundup does cause cancer in 100% of the humans it comes in contact with. Or at least, according to news reports, hyperbolic news reports, you would think that that's the case. And of course, everything I just said is a lie. Okay, let me rephrase that also. Yes, glyphosate is the active ingredients in Roundup. True. And yes, trace amounts of it have been found in various cereals, including, but not just, Honey Nut Cheerios. We ain't just picking on the bee. But after those two things, everything else I said was a total lie, or at least a wild exaggeration. Yet a judge and jury recently penalized the huge chemical manufacturer Monsanto with a judgment against them of multiple billions of dollars. Well, you may ask, if, as I say, this is all a lie, why would a jury make such a huge award against Monsanto for people who clearly contracted cancer from this pesticide? I mean, how is that even possible? Well, I'll tell you how. Because it's relatively easy to convince a jury of almost anything. Jury and judge aren't exactly a panel of scientific experts after all. Also, it's the same old story of big corporations killing their own customers for profit, don't you know? That's always a great business model. But for busybody consumer advocacy groups like, places like Center for the Science and the Public Interest, this is exactly what they do. Anything they don't like must somehow be harmful, or at least they must convince us that it's somehow harmful, and therefore they must sue it out of existence, or at least extort it for huge cash settlements, which is usually what they end up doing. So last year, a California school groundskeeper, Dwayne Johnson, was awarded $286 million in damages in his lawsuit alleging that the use of the popular weed killer, Roundup, which is the glyphosate, can't get that right, sold by Monsanto, and now they're a division of Bayer, A.G. Bayer, had caused him to fall ill with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, NHL. No, not National Hockey League. A judge later cut decent of this guy. He cut the award to only $78 million. Wow, what a guy. The company reportedly faces over 9,300 other plaintiffs alleging that the herbicide caused their illness too. So the gravy train, yeah buddy. And in this case, the study that found the glyphosate causes cancer was done by the Environmental Working Group. So first off, you need to be suspect of a group, an advocacy group or whatnot, called themselves the Environmental Working Group. Gee, I wonder what they stand for. Yeah, I'm sure it's for all right-thinking people. Wrong. So you go on their website and you look at it, the Environmental Working Group website, and you quickly surmise that they too, like the science and the public interest nonsense, are just another nanny group that claims that literally everything will kill us unless we do what we say and pay into causes that are important to them. Bottom line. And they, as luck would have it, and through their exhaustive and peer-reviewed studies, are the ones that found the same pesticide in the Roundup case in the Honey Nut Cheerios. Okay, so I lied again. So sue me. No, don't sue me. Of course, no one's going to sue me because I don't have deep pockets like Bayer or Monsanto. I'm not a huge frickin' company you can extort gazillions of dollars from, so they're not going to sue me. And secondly, there were no peer-reviewed studies of any kind, regardless of what you might have heard. It was the claim of only this busybody group of slip-and-fall lawyer types who look for opportunity to prey on these corporations. That's what they do. That's how they earn their living. So here are the actual facts of this so-called killer pesticide, glyphosate. In fact, there were peer-reviewed studies on 21 different occasions. A quote, the National Institutes of Health and the joint FAO-WHO meeting on pesticide residues both recently affirmed glyphosate does not cause cancer. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, and other regulatory authorities in Europe, Canada, Australia, Korea, and elsewhere routinely review all approved pesticide products and have consistently reaffirmed that glyphosate does not cause cancer, unquote. But these studies still don't tell the whole truth. So with the help of Stu Bergier of the Glenn Beck Show, let me break down how the Environmental Working Group found that glyphosate, for sure, 100% of the time, for sure, causes cancer, especially in California. I don't know, but we'll find out why, especially in California. And just so you know that if you don't know the Stu Bergier guy on Glenn Beck, he's been with him for years, and he's been on radio and TV and whatever. Smart guy, does a lot of research. He really prides himself on the research he does on this kind of stuff. So just so you know that Stu is so confident that glyphosate, this whole thing about it is just such a big fat lie that several years ago, or a few years ago, on air and on YouTube, he actually drank a cup of Roundup just to prove its lack of toxicity. And this is for real, and it's on YouTube. And years later, hey, son of a gun, he's still alive and cancer-free. I'll be darned. So we're going to take a break, be right back, and talk about how old EWG, the Environmental Working Group, found all this cancer-causing agent in Honey Nut Cheerios and why it's going to kill us all. Be right back.
You're listening to the Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
Okay, I'm back. So, here's what the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, found in the Honey Nut Cheerios case. And bear with me, okay, because I'm going to go through some background here, so just be patient. So it was determined years and years and years ago, long since at any rate, that more than 140,000 milligrams of glyphosate per day is the threshold at which there is any chance of getting cancer. Not that you're going to get cancer, that's the minimum threshold that if you have more than that, you might contract cancer. Okay? So it's no guarantee even after that. And that threshold isn't a human threshold. That was found in lab mice. Yes, indeedy. And the 140,000 milligrams per day threshold is for adults, not for children. For the children's, they claim that the maximum per day is about 30,000 milligrams. Okay, so we got to remember this: the 140,000 for adults and 30,000 for children. Why? Well, there's no reason other than kids are smaller. So it's not based on necessarily any science. It's just their best guess. Terrific. But it turns out that even this 30,000 figure isn't safe enough. So the EPA decided for safety, not based on any scientific research, mind you, they just decided to lower that maximum of 30,000, and they're lumping in all people, adults and children. So now the new standard is 30,000, not 140,000. Where did the 140 go? It just vanished. It vaporized. But again, like I said, that wasn't safe enough, so now we have to go back and we divide that 30,000 by 10 just for safety's sake, and we get a 3,000 milligram per day for the children's. Of course, they don't say anything about the adults, just for the children, so the assumption is that it's 3,000 for everyone now. So are we starting to already see how little actual science goes into all this crap? I think so. But let's continue. And they weren't done yet. Because it's so serious, glyphosate and the threat of cancer, the EPA decided that they were going to divide again that 3,000, which has already been divided down from 30,000, that they're going to divide it down by 100. So now they end up from a starting point of 140,000 milligrams per day of glyphosate, which is relatively safe, they'd say. Now they're down to 30 milligrams per day, from 140 to 30. Yeah, okay. And remember, that 30,000 number was the EPA's own number that they themselves determined, by what means I don't know, was the threshold for the potential for increased harm. Not for getting cancer, just for increased harm. Even the slightest chance, that is. So now it's 30 milligrams. But wait, it doesn't end there. And of course it never does with leftist nannies. California, the nanny state of all nanny states, hasn't chimed in yet. Oh, yes, they have. And by sheer coincidence is where all these lawsuits originated. Shocking. California has always got the strictest regulatory everything, basically, regardless of what it is. My company, my day job, we have products that we sell all over the country and all over the world, frankly. And I actually had to sign a document stating that we will not ship or sell some of our products that we sell, certain products anyway, to California because they are deemed unsafe and cancer-causing agents by those idiotic standards in California. Nowhere else, of course, but in California, naturally. So anyway, let's do a quick recap. We started at 140,000 milligrams for adults. Then we took that standard down to 30,000 to account for the children's. Then the EPA decided, before safety, no reason, no data, no scientific research, no nothing, that be divided down to get 3,000, then divided again to get to 30 milligrams per day. And again, this isn't based on any research. It's not based on any data, and it's not based on any science. It's just opinion. And like I said, this 30 milligrams has now magically become the standard for everybody, adults and children. Funny how that works, huh? Kind of like, lumping them in, the adults and the children, with the same standards. It's like the left no longer has a distinction between legal and illegal immigration. It's all just immigrants or immigration or migrants or whatever it happens to be. It's the same type of thing. And again, I cannot stress enough that these are not standards by any scientific means or study or research or data or anything. But yet to read news reports about this, mainstream media reports, this is all settled science. It's like global warming. It's settled science. Of course it is. Yeah, okay. You got to believe. You have to trust what we say. Now back to California. So California decided that the EPA 30 milligram just didn't go far enough. So they came up with a new safety standard of, ready, 1.1 milligram per day. So we all got that? A 94% reduction of the ridiculous EPA standard, and it's well over a 99% reduction of the originally determined safe level for adults of 140,000 milligrams. Ridiculous. And remember that original 140,000 milligram figure was the only actual science that was conducted on this thing to determine that you even had a chance of getting cancer. Not a likelihood, just a chance. It's basically just the beginning of any sign that cancer might someday show up. That's it. And like I said, all these things were not developed on humans. Not even the 140,000 milligram study wasn't done on humans. These studies were done on mice, which are bred, coincidentally, to be more susceptible to cancer. So, in closing, let's get back to the Honey Nut Cheerios scare, shall we? You're going to love this one. Just how many bowls of Honey Nut Cheerios will someone, child or adult, have to consume to even have the slightest chance of getting cancer, using the completely reasonable and scientific California standard put forth by the Anti-Everything-They-Don't-Like Group, Environmental Working Group, or EWG? And once again, I cannot stress this enough. EWG was the one who put out this propaganda stuff. No one has checked their work because they never released their data for it to be peer-reviewed. They never released it, so how are you going to check the work to see if it's accurate or not? Nope, you just got to take their word for it. Okay, not. So, just how many bowls does it take of Honey Nut Cheerios to give you cancer? Well, let's see. So recall the standard for California's 1.1 milligrams per day. That's almost nothing. That's over a 99% reduction in the original research done. And 1.1 milligrams isn't quite what you're going to get in your average bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios. Matter of fact, turns out it's not even close. The trace amounts that they find in Honey Nut Cheerios is parts per billion, not million, but parts per billion of the chemical in this cereal. So, Stu figured out how many bowls of Honey Nut Cheerios you'll have to consume to just get to that 1.1 milligram figure. Not the 140,000, 30,000, 3,000, or 30 milligram for the EPA, but the 1.1 milligram figure in California, which seems like it should be easy to get to, right? Well, you better get out your bowl and a very large spoon, and you better get it ready because it's going to be a long day. Well, a lot longer than a long day. You'll have to eat, ready for this, 80 bowls. This is how little glyphosate is in your average bowl of cereal. Honey Nut Cheerios, anyway. You'll have to eat an average of 80 bowls of Honey Nut Cheerios per day for the next, ready for this, for the next 80 years just to get to the 1.1 milligram figure. It'll take you 80 years at 80 bowls a day. Not a year, not a month, not a week, a day. 80 bowls per day for 80 years just to get to 1.1 milligrams of glyphosate. And remember, this is the child's standard. Now, everybody's forgotten that, or they just gloss over it, so because it's a global standard now. So, in order for that to be accurate, you would have to remain a child for 80 years, too, which is, as far as I know, impossible. I know they're doing a lot of trans thing and a lot of identity politics and whatnot, but I don't think you can identify as a child if you're like 85 years old. Just saying, maybe. I don't know. So, and another little tidbit. After that 80 years is up, the chance of harm to your body, I mean, other than blowing up on Cheerios, that is about 1 in 10,000. So if 10,000 people ate 80 bowls of Cheerios for 80 years, one of that 10,000 might have a chance of contracting cancer, of being affected by glyphosate. Now that, folks, is some serious science. And we should all be terrified. So you really shouldn't wonder how a judge or jury who are completely ignorant of the actual science and the thresholds of actual thresholds, the real science of safety developed by real science, could agree to hand out these kind of huge cash awards. They don't know, and they haven't heard of this type of research. Or just frankly somebody being smart enough to break it down like this, logically and reasonably. And then go back and you start digging into most of these other products over the years, or whatever it happens to be over the years, that have been deemed harmful or cancer causing, and you find out it's very similar in situations. It's the same junk science they repeat over and over and over again. Salt's bad, salt's good, coffee's bad, coffee's good. It's just crap everywhere. And that's the real tragedy of this crap, because the media, they're not reporters, they're not journalists anymore. They're just sensationalists they just take this kind of stuff and they run with it. Quote, study finds cereal gives you a cancer risk or something like that, unquote. People read this, they listen to it, they see it on websites and whatnot, and they believe the bull crap because it sounds believable, and that's the shame of it. But now at least you know the facts, okay? So go out, get yourself some Honey Nut Cheerios, and don't worry about getting cancer or lymphoma or anything else. If you're going to get it, it ain't from Honey Nut Cheerios. And thank you for listening. This has been Brent Smith. I'm the Common Constitutionalist. Hopefully, things will get better next Sunday and we'll be able to get outside and do some video. And other than that, that is all I got. I'm out. See you.